Have you ever felt like a cog in a huge, soulless machine? Did you have to stand in line for help to get another certificate, and you realized that you would never get to the end of this maze? Or maybe you've woken up in the morning feeling like you're not really you, but something alien and pathetic. If so, welcome to the world of Kafkaesque. This word has become a household name to describe an absurd, nightmarish, bureaucratic hell where logic doesn't work and a person is worthless. We all know this term, but who was the person who gave birth to it? Franz Kafka, a writer who during his lifetime published only crumbs of his works and bequeathed to burn everything else. A writer who didn't invent his nightmares, he lived in them. Today we will analyze how the personal tragedy of a little man from Prague turned into the greatest literature of the 20th century.
Franz Kafka was born in Prague in 1883, and this fact alone made him an outsider. Prague was part of Austria-Hungary. Kafka was a Jew who spoke and wrote in German, living in a city where the majority were Czechs. He was a stranger everywhere, a German for the Czechs, a Jew for the Germans, and too secular for religious Jews. Triple loneliness from birth. But the main tragedy of his life, its central nerve, was his father, Hermann Kafka. Hermann was the son of a butcher, a man of great physical strength, willpower, and a domineering character. He broke out of poverty and became a successful haberdashery merchant. He was loud, domineering, and overwhelming. Franz was his exact opposite, a thin, sickly, shy, and incredibly sensitive boy.
At the age of 36, Franz will write his famous letter to his father, 100 pages of accusations and pain, which he never dares to send. It contains a key episode from childhood. One night, little Franz asked for water. The father got tired of the whining. He silently pulled the child out of bed, took him to the balcony, or Pavlach, as it was called in Prague, and locked him there in his nightgown. Kafka recalled, "Years later, I still suffered from the agonizing idea that a huge man, my father, the highest authority, could come up to me at night for almost no reason, pull me out of bed and take me to Pavlach, and that therefore I was nothing to him." This nothing became the foundation of Kafka's personality. He grew up with a chronic sense of guilt and worthlessness. Next to his loud-mouthed father, he was literally speechless. His whole life became an attempt to justify the very fact of his existence.
Could a man with such a hole in his soul build a normal relationship? Kafka desperately needed love, but he was terrified of it. Marriage meant two things to him. First, to become like his father, the head of the family, which disgusted him. Secondly, to lose your only refuge, writing. He wrote in his diary, "Marriage is a punishment. Cohabitation is the loss of loneliness, and loneliness is the only thing I need for writing." His main relationships were epistolary affairs. The most famous one is with Felicia Bauer. They were engaged twice, and Kafka broke off the engagement twice. They had only seen each other in person for a few weeks in 5 years, but Kafka had written her hundreds of letters, sometimes 2 or 3 a day. It was not love for a real woman, but love for the image, for the very process of suffering for her. In these letters, he sometimes begs her for love, then describes his illnesses in detail in order to push her away. It was torture for both of them.
Later, there was Milena Jasenskaya, a Czech journalist, perhaps the only woman who truly understood his genius and his darkness. Their relationship was short, passionate, and also doomed. Kafka wanted intimacy, but as soon as it became real, he ran into his hole, to paper and ink. And here we come to the main point. How did this life full of fear and suppressed desires turn into his great texts? Kafka worked as a lawyer in an insurance company during the day. He hated this job. He saw how the bureaucratic machine grinds people who have been injured at work. He saw how a living person turned into case number 345,
This hated job and the fear of his father merged into his main themes. In the novel The Trial, Joseph K. is arrested on the morning of his birthday. They don't tell him what they're accusing him of. He finds himself in a maze of ships located in the attics of dirty houses. He's trying to justify himself, but how can you justify yourself if you don't know the charges? This is a direct reflection of Kafka's life. He always felt guilty about his father, but he could never figure out what exactly he had done wrong. His father's law was incomprehensible and cruel. In Kafka's world, a person is guilty simply because he exists.
The most famous novel is Transformation. Gregor Samsa, a traveling salesman who supports the whole family, wakes up one morning and discovers that he has become a huge insect. Attention, his first thought is not, "Oh my God, I'm a bug," but "How am I going to go to work now? The boss will be furious." What happens next? The family, who lived at his expense, begins to be ashamed of him. His father even throws an apple at him, which gets stuck in the shell and rots, causing pain. As a result, Gregor dies alone, and the family sighs with relief. This is the scariest metaphor of Franz's own life. He felt like this insect in the family of the successful merchant Hermann Kafka. He felt that he was appreciated only as long as he was functional, as long as he brought a salary. And as a creative unit, he's a freak who needs to be hidden in a back room. Transformation is a cry about how easily native people become strangers if you stop meeting their expectations. All Kafka's works are not fiction. This is the hyper-realism of his inner world. Kafka was a hypochondriac all his life. He was afraid of diseases. But when he was diagnosed with tuberculosis in 1917, then a death sentence, he took it almost with relief. The illness became a legal reason to quit a hated job and break off painful engagements. The body finally agreed with the soul. It refused to live in this world. He spent the last months with Dora Diamond, a young girl who ran away from an Orthodox Jewish family. It seems that only with her, on the verge of death, he found a semblance of peace. He died in a sanatorium near Vienna in 1924. He was only 40 years old. Before his death, he asked his best friend, Max Brod, to burn all his manuscripts, diaries, letters, novels The Trial, The Castle, America, everything had to disappear.
Fortunately for us, Max Brod betrayed his friend. He did not burn the manuscripts. He published them. Franz Kafka, a man who considered himself nothing, who was afraid of his own shadow and lived all his life under the yoke of his father, became a prophet of the 20th century. He described totalitarian regimes, bureaucratic absurdity, and human loneliness in a megalopolis even before they reached their peak. He showed us that the scariest monsters do not live under the bed, but inside ourselves and in offices with high ceilings. And that's why Kafka is immortal.